Hey everyone, this is the thenextarcher, and today we're going to be taking a look at my Switchblade knife collection. Before I started showing these off, I do want to mention that at the same time, I am testing my new microphone and my new lighting, so please let me know what you think of those things as well. We're going to be taking a look at a good variety of Switchblades, ranging anything from like $20 more budget automatics that are still in production, to some more rare things like this Rob Doulton Double Trouble that can get quite expensive on the secondary market and has been discontinued for years. So I'm not going to go in any particular order for these. I did try to categorize these a little bit, but they may not be in perfect order. So let's take a look at my first knife. This wasn't my first knife, but the first one I'm showing here is the Zero Tolerance 650. This is the only zero tolerance automatic I own. This was designed by Greg and Gavin Hawk, has 154 cm, and it doesn't have that normal button automatic. This is where you actually pull this little lever down and it opens up very nicely. And I'll probably zoom in a little bit so you guys can see these just slightly better. This can lock by pushing the lever towards the logo. And if you do kind of an angle pull down, you can open it up without having to really disengage the lock. Next we have my Microtech Ultratex. I have 5 of them on this table. I do have duplicates of them. They were each purchased at Blade Show, and they are the Blade Show exclusives. I'm not too happy with the pre-2015 Microtech Ultratex. Way too hard to open and close. I mean, with this one, I can't even close it with 2 hands. Maybe partially because I haven't been opening it lately, but it's always been extremely difficult. Tears up your thumb, but each year they have become easier to open. So this is the double-edged tactical version, black screws. Here is the double-edged black blade, black screws, so still the tactical version, and it says Blade Show 2013 on the pocket clip. We have the 20th anniversary, which was for 2014. Yep. Doesn't say Blade Show on it at all, but does have that Tanto blade style, non-tactical screws. This one's still very difficult to open and close, but then they got to 2015 and it became much easier to open and close their knives. Double-edged Tanto, non-tactical screws. And then, let's see, it doesn't say Blade Show on the blade, but it does on their logo right there. As you can see, decently easy to open and close. Then we got to 2016. This is probably my favorite. They did have, I believe, 4 variants of this knife. Some with M390, some with LMAX, and different blade shapes. So non-tactical screws, says Blade Show on the handle. And this just says Ultratech S-E. And this has M390. And this is probably the most usable one that I have. And M390 is very nice steel. Next we have the Tech Cmt X5. I had one of these in my Carta that I sold, and this one is in, oh goodness, carbon fiber. The interesting thing about this one, I do really like hidden release or dual action automatics. That the hidden release means that it looks like it just opens using the thumb stud, which it can. But it has some type of feature you can open it up. This one has a pocket clip release, so when you press down on the pocket clip, you actually press a button in the handle that releases a spring that opens the blade. Correction, not all hidden release automatics actually do have a not all of them you can open using a thumb stud. There's some by, I think, Protec that is slide scale, and that's the only way you can open it up. So it's not dual action as well, some of them aren't. This is a hidden release dual action. This is the Tech Lcc. Very cool knife. You have micarta handles. This has the titanium bolsters and 154 cm blade. Fantastic knife. Very smooth action. And to open this one up, you push on the scale or the bolster. Another hidden release automatic. This is the Protec Attack. These came in manual and automatic, or a manual and then the dual action. So this one can open up using thumb stud, or you can press this little corner of the carbon fiber insert, and it opens up the knife for you. Next we have a little bit of an inexpensive knife. This is the Smith & Wesson U.S. Army issue. These probably were never actually issued to the Army, but I purchased this one at a yard sale. Actually, the 127. It's the world's longest chain of yard sales. Pretty neat knife. Discontinued back in the 90s. So, a little bit collectible, but I mean, I think I paid like $2 for it. Next is the Benchmade Cqc 7, I believe. This is a chisel ground knife. You can see it's been used a lot. I believe I purchased this off of a SWAT team member on Craigslist. So he used it while he was in the SWAT team, and he wanted to sell it, so he sold it on Craigslist to me. It's rather interesting. ATS 34, nice large knife. Next we have the Benchmade 3800 NTK. This was not ever actually into production. It was modeled after the Lone Wolf D2, after Benchmade bought Lone Wolf knives. I believe there were some issues with it, or there was a disagreement with Bill Harsey, so they decided never to actually put it into production. They produced maybe 50 or 60 or 70 of these and sent them out to dealers or other people to try them out. But the problem with this one, the spring actually snapped and chipped the blade slightly. I sent it in, well, actually I was at Blade Show, handed it to one of the people that agreed to fix it. And after they fixed it, so the blade, perfect, no chips, it started opening automatically without like me pressing the button in the handle. So I just took the spring out and now it's manual action. So while it is technically dual action, doesn't currently have the spring in it. Next to that we have the actual Lone Wolf D2. So this was before Benchmade purchased it, so you can get an idea of what this one should be like. So you can open it up using either the thumb stud, or there is a hidden button right there. Opens up very quickly. And these have gotten somewhat difficult to find, at least for a reasonable price. We have a second one with serrations and used. You can tell it's used. I believe it also has some blade rattle. No? Maybe that was a different one I had. Maybe I fixed it. I don't know. But that one's the serrated version. Next we have a Lone Wolf Velata. Another dual action automatic with contoured G10 handles, so very thick handle. You can open that up and then press the button in the middle of the handle to open the blade. Same design on the next Lone Wolf Velata, so you can see, or the same blade, you can see there. Only difference really is the handle and how it's deployed. So on this one, I can show that here, it's actually a slide scale. So you push the scale over this way and it opens up. It's very cool. Lone Wolf Warrior. I think the Longhorn is the manual version. So open up using the thumb stud or slide scale. Very quick. I've left this one completely open so it doesn't wear out the spring, and it is very snappy still. A lot of my, well, let's see, a few of my lone wolves I purchased from Knife Works. Apparently they had shipped some possibly to Russia. It got rejected in customs, and they just had like a bunch of knives in their warehouse, and they were selling them at a great price. At Blade Show they were, but the past few years they haven't had anything like that at Blade Show. Next we have the Diablo DA. This is another double action. So open it up using the thumb stud. This one is very stiff, so may have to loosen up the pivot, but still rockets out with the automatic slide scale feature. Then we have one with a black blade. Same thing, but more of a tactical appearance. Black blade, black pocket clip. Everything else exactly the same. Yeah, even the markings on the blade are the same. And lastly, on that row, we have the Ganzo 70. Is it the 707? Yeah, the 707. This is a fantastic value for a Switchblade. Made by Ganzo. It's a Chinese company. You can buy these for around 20 bucks. They make maybe 4 or 5 different automatic knives, and then a bunch of manual action knives as well. But they use 440C, fantastic quality. It's for 20 bucks, you're getting something that would be about 100 bucks from a lot of these other companies. It is somewhat of a copy of, I think, a Protec knife, but it isn't a exact duplicate. You have wood inserts on the aluminum handles, 440C that's been heat treated very well. I've used some of the other Ganzo knives I have, and the edge retention is great. So let's go to the center, and then we'll go down this row back here. So first off, let's take a look at the Doulton Double Trouble. This is a brass knuckle, but also has a switchblade in the knuckle right there. So you just close that by pressing the button and pushing it in, and then got a little hook knife. This is a very heavy knife. A lot of these knuckle knives, you'll think, oh, that's some flea market piece of junk, but they are definitely quality, have large springs to rocket it out, so very sought after. I mean, I've seen, at one point, I think I was seeing those go for about $1,000. I paid nowhere near that. I got it at a knife show at a fantastic deal. Next we have a more recent Rob Doulton, and this is the Doulton, I'm going to call it the Doulton Special Forces. I don't remember seeing a name. This was bought right off of Rob Doulton's site, but it does have Special Forces on the handle. Some have different names. Is a side opening knuckle knife, so you can put your fingers in there, although if you press the button that's going to be uncomfortable. So very fast. This one actually fits my fingers decently well. The Double Trouble does not. And I kind of got this because I've always been wanting a Doulton dog face, but I don't think I'll ever buy one. From what I've heard, about half to more than half of the Doulton dog faces are currently in Russia, because people will purchase them here and then ship them over to Russia, because there's some apparently pretty wealthy people wanting Doultons there, which has made the price go up substantially for the ones that are still in the US. Always wanted one, but don't think I'll be able to purchase. So let's go through this bottom row. First off, we have the Benchmade Mini Reflex. I believe this was my first automatic knife. Fantastic little EDC knife if automatic knives are legal to carry where you live. I believe Benchmade may have discontinued this knife and has the Reflex 2. It has a slightly larger spring in it, and maybe a different button and some other features. We have one of the only, well, let's see. I have two customs in here. So this is the Diskin wheel. Has some very special features. I'm not going to mention them all. It deserves its own video. But this is a dual action knife, so you can open it up using either the thumb, I don't know what shape that is, a tear shape, or you can use the actual wheel to open it up very quickly. Some of the other cool features that I'll go into more detail at a later time. You have the carbon fiber pocket clip as well as the unique kind of frame liner lock, so you can see that's actually part of the locking system right there. So that's really neat. There you go. Another one that Diskin, Matt Diskin, is very well known for is the Diskin Fire. Love this knife. There are some flaws to it that keep me from carrying it and using and all that. And those real dislikes are the lock can be somewhat sharp on the side, so it really digs into your thumb. You can see that. And then the pocket clip makes it hard to take out of a lot of pants, especially like 511 tactical pants. It just grips onto your pocket and it's hard to pull out unless you put some type of lanyard on it, but it doesn't have a lanyard hole, so you have to put it on the pocket clip. Just makes it somewhat difficult. So if they made a non-low ride pocket clip for this, that would make it fantastic, because I can still, I mean, even though that's sharp, I'm okay with that. But not being able to take it out of your pocket when you need to, that's a little bit harder. So I'll show you how that fires. You can open it up using the thumb stud. It does run on bearings, or you can push the carbon fiber scale over. And you can see how thick these liners are, so it's basically like a frame lock, practically is. Next is the Velata and Chameleon. I purchased this knife at Blade Show last year. Of course, I will be going to Blade Show again this year. It was really nice because when I purchased this, I knew there was some flaws that I was going to have to fix. The blade wasn't centered, it wasn't going to open very well. But when I walked over to the Velata booth, they actually, when they looked at it, they were like, oh, this is wrong with it. The spring is kind of worn out. So they said, hand it to me, we'll fix it and send it back to you. And that's what they did. I had it within I think it was within a month of Blade Show. They had already fixed it up, sent it back to me, and it's like new. They did mention that the scales, the rubber on there can sometimes wear out, but they have replacement rubber for it, which is awesome. Can open up using the thumb stud, or there's a hidden button on the handle. It sometimes doesn't work extremely well. Let's see if, there we go. Yeah, there we go. So it's not, it doesn't kick like a Doulton or something like that, but still a very nice knife. And these were actually pretty decent priced for what it is. I mean, I think I paid somewhere around 120 for that. I've seen them go for $200 to $300. Well, I should say 300-ish. Which for a dual action automatic that's custom, that's fantastic. Next, we're going to go into my Doultons. This is the Dalton Woods Walker. You can see a very thin handle. I think that's why they call it a Woods Walker, is because when people are hiking, they don't want very much weight. However, you can see a very big pivot, which means it still has the Doulton spring. So, close that, and very fast. And that's what Doulton has on all of his knives. Large springs, rockets the blade out. On some of these, this spring actually is so quick and so strong that it actually can sting your hand a little bit when holding on to the aluminum handles. Next, we have the Doulton Gatekeeper. I'm not sure if this is the small Gatekeeper or what particular name it is, but they do have multiple sizes. This is a California legal knife, so it's sub 2-inch blade. And you can see how quick that is. Very snappy. It does have pocket clip. I don't know if I just mentioned that. And lastly, this is the Cali Legal by Rob Dalton. No pocket clip. Has some G10 inserts on the handle. And this is probably my most snappy knife. This is the one that actually stings your hand a little bit when opening. And you can hear that snap. It just puts a smile on your face. Okay, next is probably one of my more aggressive looking automatics, and this is the Doulton Warhawk. You can see that hawk-bill blade kind of reminds me of a karambit without the ring. Open that up, and you can hold this in a variety of different ways, but it is very cool. This is the serrated version. They did have one without serrations. We have the Dalton Killroy. This is a single action out the front. So you push the button, pull the leather thong back. I think that's what they call it. And it rockets open. Next we have a this is a knife that always gets conversations going. Whenever I post it, people comment that it is the weirdest thing they've seen, and this is the Dalton Crusader cross. Came in a couple different variants, as well as they had a miniature, almost pendant or necklace pendant size one. And it does have a knife that comes out the bottom of the cross, right there. We have the Doulton, really what Doulton is known for a lot, and that is the Cupid. This is the first generation Cupid. Some people call it the Joker's knife because the Joker in the Dark Knight movie used a knife a lot like this, which is actually this style right here, in the movie. So another single action out the front. This one does not have any safety. It's a first generation, was actually hand ground by Doulton. You can see there is a little bit of an imperfect, or I shouldn't call it an imperfection. You can see that kind of the grind lines is kind of curved because he did use a hollow grind. I don't know if you can see towards the tip that. We have a 4th generation Cupid. This one has the circular lock on it. Oh, there we go. So safety, fire, you can open it up like that. Very nice. We have the Smith & Wesson. I believe this is called the 2000 Executioner or the Executioner 2000. I don't know. Not a very high quality knife, but wasn't made for very long, so it's somewhat collectible. Probably overpaid for it. But I got this at the Knob Creek machine gun shoot. The downside about this particular one, I did have to remove the safety on this because the safety actually made it so the push button did not engage when back. So it was just, if you disengage the safety, the blade would shoot out. But there we go. Next we have another single action out the front. This is the Paragon ATKO 10T. They're still making the ATKO. Chisel ground Tanto. There we go. Black handle, black blade, 154, or nope, ATS 34 blade steel. And it does have a safety. Next are some knives that probably aren't as appreciated as a lot of these other, and these are the Nato military and super automatic knives. These were produced in the 80s to very early 90s, and you could find them in like the back of magazines. They were sold, a lot of them, by the Edge Company. So I actually have some of the Edge Company catalogs I got off eBay. And they were kind of known as a more junky knife that people would use and then they'd throw them away. It was more of for kit. I hate saying it, but they were more for almost kids, where they would abuse their knives and they'd break apart because they weren't that high quality. But nowadays, they're somewhat collectible because people want to get the knives that they had as a kid. These came mostly in kits, so you'd get them in a plastic bag, you'd put them together, and since you weren't legally allowed to ship automatic knives through the mail, they'd ship them unassembled. That was caught up by the federal government in the 90s, and that's why the company is no longer around. So first off, we have the Nato military in Camouflage. I'm going to go through these relatively quickly because they're not too different. If you're wanting to see specs or the small detail differences on each one, I can in a different video if you would like. Nato military in camo, in decent condition. Kind of a unique one with a squared handle, automatic star. Kind of a lesser common one. Probably my worst quality of them all. I think this is a modern production modern version of it from China. On the blade it says CRP. Sometimes it fails to open completely, even though it's hardly been handled at all. We have a super automatic in a flat black handle with no raised lettering. We have one with flat black handle with raised lettering, and then we have a black one with a rounded handle and raised lettering. It's relatively cool. 3 of what's supposed to be the same knife with just minor differences on the handle. Then we have 3 of the green Nato militaries. The only difference between these are stainless steel on the blade, or this one says stainless steel on the blade, the other 2 say rust free. They mean the same thing, but there you go. And my last automatic is the Super Stiletto. I haven't put any oil on this or opened it very much lately, so probably won't open all the way when I push the button. Yep. But there you go. That's another one that was, I think, sold by the Edge company. But there you go. Thank you for watching. Please let me know what you thought about my collection. Which one was your favorite? Was the sound and lighting okay? Anyways, thanks for watching. Have a great day. See you guys later.